Any weapon whose reloading die doesn't fit in the palm of your hand is rather epic. This is a Sharps Borchardt, not in 4570, but in 45-120. Look at that monster. 535 grain slugs of just get out of here. We got to put a front sight on this job, so we're going to talk about doing some dovetail work, drilling a couple of holes in the back of this, getting some sights on this thing, and see if we can hit what we're aiming at before an epic cloud of smoke clouds our way. Carbon-based life form, down the rabbit hole. Let's go. The original rear sight that came on the gun had a round bottom, and what we've done is milled this out octagonal so that the rear will actually sit on the barrel here. Barrel location, we'll talk later about centers of mass. I'm going to tell you it's probably got to go right here. You can't get a rear sight too close to your eyes. You just don't want to do it. You won't be able to focus on it. So this front sight is going to sit out on the end of the barrel out about here somewhere. And we're going to go ahead and mill a dovetail in this barrel, and I'm going to get down on the towel and show you that. And these open sights will probably get used most of the time with the gun. This reproduction Malcolm sight, while nice, doesn't have even close to the vertical adjustment necessary to go beyond about 200 yards with this gun. You just don't have enough turret because these things fly like rainbows. So ordinarily for long range work, the rear scope will be just removed. Let's see here if I can pop this off. The scope will come off. The bases will remain in place, and then if he really wants to get out there and touch somebody, we'll be able to pop that rear. We'll be able to pop that rear up like this. The background's awful busy for this. I'm looking in the monitor. There you go. The rear is going to sit right there like that. And we'll leave enough room that we can get everything in and out. And based on where this is going to go, let me show you something. There are two things that go into where we're going to put this rear sight on the barrel. We've just screwed it in. One of which is the balance point. When you hang the gun, it's going to hang right here. So you want the sight not where your hand is grabbing the barrel. So the sight's going to have to go forward of my hand or behind my hand. The other is the human eye can't focus on something that's only that far away from it. So if you want to stand a prayer of looking over these sights, it's going to have to go in the forward position. I've selected a front sight that is low enough that we can actually have the muzzle elevated. You can see here the center of that aperture, I don't have a post in it, is about the height of the rear sight set at 100 yards. What we're going to have to probably make some modifications to the front sight to get this thing on at 100. But once we get it zeroed at 100, we'll be able to scale up and go on out. So you cut a dovetail in two steps. Let's draw this dovetail here. This piece has got a bottom on it like that, and then it has a ledge. And then let's just, for the sake of argument, draw something that looks like a front sight. Ours doesn't look like that, but we're going to do that. You got to know the distance from here to here, and you need to know this distance and this included angle right here. All right. Let's see. We're going to call that an angle. You'll just do that, right? Okay. So in this particular case, this sight has a 60-degree angle on it. Let me get it up here where you can see it. 60-degree angle. I've got a dovetail cutter that exactly mimics it, but cutting dovetails isn't quite that straightforward. You don't just take a dovetail cutter and blow all this. You take a straight mill and you mill out the hole, and then you come in with the dovetail cutter. Here, let me move this out of the way. I got to get up a little bit. I'm a bit off camera here. There we go. And then you come in with the dovetail cutter and you remove the corners like this. So it's a two-step process to drill in this hole, and you can't move the bottom of the hole. So there's some games you play on a milling machine. You touch off on the top surface of the barrel right here. I'm going to touch off right there. And then when we fly back in with the cutter, we'll fly in, we'll take the bottom of the milling cutter of the dovetail cutter will touch the top of this and it will come down the distance that we need to come down and cut the bottom off it. Clear as mud. Not my best drawing set ever, but let's go cut us a dovetail, because I'll tell you one thing's for sure. We got to put this sight as close to the front end of the gun as we can physically get it and still have it look correct. Just so that we're clear, this dovetail is 380. It's 100 thou down, and the wall of the barrel is 250 thou. The bore is down here around my hand somewhere, so we're good. This 250 thousandths of an inch number is going to come in handy when we do a couple of things. One, we know we're not going to cut the dovetail through the bore, and don't laugh, because it has happened, and it hasn't happened to me. But boy, I haven't had to learn that lesson. But when we go to drill the screws to mount the rear sight, when we go to drill that screw right there, I know that I can comfortably come in about 180 thousandths of an inch. And I know that because I've already done that math when I mounted the scope. The dovetail cutter, and hang on a minute, those of us that are blind, is 359 thousandths. So I know that there's about 20 thou of slop front to back off the dovetail cutter. And then that number right there tells me that once I'm done making the cut, I can then start milking backwards about 20 thousandths of an inch and moving one of the walls until this just starts in. And then this thing is larger on one side than it is on the other by a thousandth or two, so it'll draw up when it goes in. So you can sit there and measure this all you want, but at the end of the day, you just have to cut it by feel. At least that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so I've set the wheel to 0, and I had brought down the cutter until it was just singing on the top. So now every time, and I've got the handle out of the way on the knee here, so what I'm doing is I'm making passes by, and I'm taking about a 10 thousandths cut every time. So here we go on our first cut, and the chips are starting to fly. And then we'll go back through and we'll pull the knee up there, 10 thou, come back the other way. And we're going to do this until we've plunged in 100 thousandths of an inch, and we'll have a rectangular cut. Okay, we're going to move it one more time, and now Bruno's going to do his thing, and we're going to blast through this. Okay, so we'll back it away, turn the quill off, and switch over to the dovetail cutter. So we bring the cutter down and bring the barrel back underneath it. And I'm just using the quill, and I'm bringing it down until I feel the cutter just touch off. That's all the more precise it's got to be. Right there, lock the quill, and then back the knee away. Here we go, the knee's coming away now. So after setting 0 on the knee, I'm dropping the knee here, and then we'll get this thing out of the way. Come back over to 0, there's 0. And I don't think I moved it back far enough there. I went away a little bit further. Okay, we'll back it. All right. So once I set 0 on the knee, I drop it down to 100 thou, and then I get that handle out of the way because I don't want to bump into it and move it. We'll fire the spindle up. When you commit to cutting this dovetail, you're committed. You can't sneak up on this like we did cutting the groove. You just got to come in. And the optical illusions are amazing here. That's why you see me walking around the side. And I'm doing the idiot check. Is this cutter in the right spot? Once it's in the right spot, you just got to commit and make the chips fly. And it's one pass straight through. A little bit of oil on this one. And here we go. chips are flying now. We're going very, very slow. The edges of this dovetail cutter are extremely fragile, and you've got to handle this thing like it's a rotating egg. This is a classic example right here of teaching pigs how to fly. It usually doesn't work and typically results in a pissed off pig. Nice and easy, guys. Nice and easy. Don't rush this. Plenty of oil, plenty of chip clearance. You'll see me come back out here and blow on it a little bit with some air. This is to make sure that a chip doesn't foul a tooth, and then it just, oh, it makes a bloody mess out of it. We're through. So the next thing we've got to do is pull that 20 to 25 thousandths of an inch forward in this particular case. I've zeroed out the position indicator here, and now I'm going to move the long axis of the table and bring the cutter forward in 5 thousandths of an inch increments. So we're making the dovetail wider now. From here on out, it's a cut and try kind of deal, and I know I've been beat up for that, but trust me, the difference between this thing fitting beautifully and being sloppy is about 2 thousandths of an inch. So milk your way in, and then take it over to the bench and finish it up with a file very gingerly. All right, all I got to do now is pop a couple of holes in this thing. Let's get over to the vise and tap one of the sight base holes, and we'll go from there. Bruno spent all of this time lining this shot up, but I want to show you this. So now we have the front sight mounted, dovetail is cut. I didn't delve really deeply into doing this because this is something you just got to make a bunch of mistakes at and learn how to do. And again, a custom 45-120 Borchardt is not the gun you learn on. So we'll go right here. All right, I had Sharpie marker down this area right here just so that I could see the prick punch marks. The barrel wall thickness is 250 thou up at the front, so it's even thicker here. So I came in 180 on the mill, and I drilled down these holes 180, and I knew I wasn't going to punch into the barrel. So a little trick I'm going to show you here. I have two different taps, and these taps are both, let me get my finger out of the way. One of these taps, it's not a starting tap. You don't have enough room in a blind hole to do a starting tap, but you can do a finishing tap if you're very careful and you're extremely mindful of the amount of torque you're putting on this thing, and it'll run, but when it bottoms in a hole, it will stop moving, and if you push it, you will snap the tap off in the hole, and then you are duly and truly hosed, because these taps are a lot harder than this steel. Green Mountain made this barrel, and I'm going to tell you what, I've had nothing but luck with those guys. I'm not sponsored, I'm not paid to say that, but I'm going to tell you, every Green Mountain tube I have ever put on a gun has run like a scalded cat. This gun has been fired already. I'm going to tell you that. We shot it once just to verify the headspace. We will shoot it many more times. Then I transition over to a tap that I've cut the bottom off of, and I'm going to see if I can't. Bruno, pull the focus up, please. I'm going to show you that I've cut the bottom off that tap, and that thing cuts threads almost to the very bottom. You can't start a hole with this. However, what you can do is finish a hole with this, and I'm going to show you where the torque starts winding up on this once we get it run in here. Hang on a minute. Let me find the threads. Where are we here? There we are, right there. It'll grab them, and this will go down, and then it will start pulling torque right there, and there it's cutting. So I'm getting... I got almost a full turn out of that thing more down in the bottom, but then it comes up tight, and it's tight. And in case you haven't noticed, I've been driving this tap wrench with my fingertips. I'm not killing it. But this is an 840 screw that we're going to use to hold this in with. That is an 836 tap. Well, you're using the wrong tap for the hole. No, I'm not. The interference between a 36 and a 40, it will begin to interfere with itself out about 7, 8, 9 turns in. We're only going to go down about 3 or 4 turns, but as the 36 threads start interfering with the 40 screw, the thing will drag up, come up tight, and hang on in a way that Loctite will not hang it up. Don't use it on through drilled holes, but in this particular case, it's something I do, and I'm sure I'm going to take a lot of guff for that, but that's what I do there. That's how these are tapped. That's how everything else is tapped. So let's get this out of here. And I will tell you that I have not made the special funky screw for the front yet, because this was set up for number 6 screws, and I've got number 8s in it. This is an 840 here for the front. Let me get that going here. This 8 begins to tighten up right about here. So when we come, because of the interference between the thread pitches, and we tighten down on that, that is good and tight. So let's hang the optics on this pig and take a look at what we got. Here's the scope, and the scope slides up, and it slides backwards onto these mounts. They slide back, and then they're captured with a screw over here on this side, captured with a screw over here on this side. And if you come back and give me a little wider angle, I'll show you the whole system on this thing. Here we go. So here we have, this has external turrets on it, and these mounts are exactly the right distance apart that every number on the top of this gives you 1/4 of an MOA. So one complete turn on this is supposed to be 1 inch. Now, these tube sights were set up for slightly higher velocity rounds. This thing is like a Mack truck, and it's dropping like a rainbow. So I don't know how this scope is going to perform on this weapon, but I'm going to tell you what, tell me that's not totally badass. Weapons this big are good for hunting elk, buffalo, house. Tell your wife you're going house hunting. She might believe you for a change. I don't know. The proof of the pudding's in the eating. So I guess sooner or later there's going to come a time when we're going to have to shoot this thing. Yeah, that will remind you. Who's boss? Anybody else want to try at it? Here's the front sight that brought us all here. We cut that dovetail, used the lowest front we could get in order to get it down on top of the gun. It has inserts. This is alignment number 17 in its lowest iteration. They make this in a variety of heights. Repop scope. This is not one of those scopes that's designed to move. It does have exterior turrets. And then we took the rear sight and went ahead and milled the octagon on it. So when it sat on the barrel there, you can see the octagon sits down. We used number 8 screws instead of number 6s throughout this. And here's how this thing is designed to work. The optics on the gun are designed to just slide off and come free. And then you have the rear sight available with its original elevation. Now this sight's calibrated for 4570 bullet weights, and I don't know where that's going to leave us. There's a little bit of range time left for this. Oh boy, I'm going to have to go find a younger shoulder. Well, here's the business end of this cannon right here. As the breeches drop down, you can see the ejector pops open there. Here's an empty. Just slide that thing all the way up in there. And the breech comes up and locks it shut. Now, when you close the gun here, there's a safety down at the bottom that has to be pulled backwards in order for it to work. So the safety pops on every time you open up the breech in order to ensure that as you're closing this breech, you don't just accidentally stroke the trigger and have one hell of an unintended consequence. 535 grains of get the heck out of here. You gotta be kidding me. That's a pretty heavy projectile for anything. It has the trajectory of a rainbow. That's the finish round right there, and that thing is enormous. Look at that. That thing's bigger than some of the cigars I smoke. One of our listeners here sent me a comment in Patreon and said his gunsmith that he was apprenticing under said, "This is the gun that you fire, get back up on your feet, reload, and fire again." The gun itself, the bluing on the receiver is original. We've blued the barrel. I haven't made friends with the scope yet. There's still a lot of work left to be done on this thing, but man, I'll tell you what, I have really enjoyed this. As always, it's been a pleasure, guys. We'll catch you on the flip side with something else. Brian, that was some amazing machining work you did for me, man. I cannot thank you enough.